Today, we will take a look at the statue grabs, toppling of statues by the mob, Supreme Court of the United States. We'll also be taking a look at potential flag desecrations and much, much more along the cultural chaos and the whitewashing it appears in America. So we'll jump right in right now. Welcome to Black Spring on this Monday. Now, I'd also like to take an opportunity to welcome everyone to Black Spring. And also, we will be taking a couple of extra breaks to thank the loyal patrons and much, much more. But to begin this segment, this installment, I would like to offer a sociological perspective that comes from Dr. Jordan B Peterson, and it is entitled An Ideological View of Poverty, Wealth, and Civilization. Now, the poor are poor, so goes the ideological story, because they are oppressed, with no consideration given to their characteristics as individuals. But the poor are poor for many reasons: corruption, addiction, poor mental health or physical health, lack of education, unwillingness to work, as a conscientiousness is a normally distributed trait. Narcissism, psychopathy, social upheaval, economic downturns, natural disaster, the list is virtually endless. And the cause cannot be simple mindedly at the feet of insufficient and corrupt social structure, even though it is insufficient compared to what we would like, even though it is corrupt compared to what it could be. But some perspective and some gratitude is in order. The rich are rich because they are oppressors, with no consideration given to their potential competence and productivity and desire to improve the lot of those around them, and to mentor and lead, and to strive for self-improvement, and to compete and cooperate in a fair and just manner, and to accept additional responsibility, and to solve complex problems, and to take extreme entrepreneurial risk, and engage in philanthropy, and to leave a better world for their children and grandchildren. All of Western civilization is the result of patriarchal oppression. All political, economic, religious, and philosophical systems are based on the desire for power. Race, or class, or gender, or ethnicity is the prime determinant of human value. This is the replacement of actual knowledge with mere verbal fluency. You are not correct merely because you can make an argument, even a good argument, nor because you can make your opponent's position appear absurd, particularly if he or she is particularly capable of verbal sparring. You are not correct if you spend your time creating straw man and then lighting them on fire. There's nothing productive or good about this line of argumentation. It is mere simplification for the purposes of inciting divisiveness, regenerating tribalism, and justifying revenge. Of course, the system is rife with problems. That's not the point. Compared to what? The past, the present, and the rest of the world? And what are you planning to do in your ideological certainty to make even one thing better without insisting that someone else changes to ensure that improvement occurs? Thank you so much. Shout out to Luciano. How are you? Thank you for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope you are well. Also want to give a shout out to the patrons. I want to shout out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Angel Munez Variety Show, The Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you so much to the subscribers. Hope everybody's doing well. You guys will take an opportunity. You will find links in the stream, and we will also take a pause for our sponsorships and our patrons in the upcoming Black Spring with Autumn live streams. So Luciano, I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for coming in, and I hope that you are doing well, and that if you will hit that like button for the Channelytics, I really appreciate you. So I also want to start off with a bit of a story that's very interesting and very apropos to the idea or the injection of contact tracing due to the COVID-19, or you may have heard it as the pandemic. So let's take a look at a story. I mean, is your cell phone underperforming? Got a glitch lately? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a story with you. Got a comment here from Luciano. It says, de Blasio cheers removal of Roosevelt statue. Isn't that the statue grab? And the fact that it just seems to be a lot of silence. You're not hearing from many people. We're not hearing from the people that are the leadership. Where are the mamas and the papas going to stand up and say, hey, this is not going to work? You live in a country with laws, and if you can't handle that, then you're going to be dealt with accordingly. Like you can't keep allowing this acquiescence and this coddling and this appeasement of lawlessness. I mean, what are you going to do? Where does that get you? So that that people can act out on their utopia, so that they can pretend that they're in a utopia. I mean, what's happening? What's happening to this country? I mean, we're starting to resemble other places in the world. We're starting to resemble places that other people flee from to avoid these kinds of civil unrest and this type of mutiny, or mass movements of mob. Alan Believer, shout out to you. Hi, Black Spring. Everyone else, I'm driving so I can talk, but I'm listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. That you can listen, and that you're able to tune in and contribute to the Channelytics when safe. That's my only I really appreciate that, Luciano and Alan Believers. So I will continue. So I want to bring you a story from the vetted source, New American, in which I have some personal experience with, and it's related to the cell phone. So I'm going to go into that. Story, but I'd also like to go ahead and provide some links for the loyal patrons. I hope everybody's doing well on your Monday. And believe it or not, it is Monday again. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like time is flying. And I don't say that, and I don't mean that in a sentimental, I don't mean to be archaically sentimental when I say that, but it just seems like, we're slightly beyond the halfway point in 2020. And it just seems like we're in a, it seems there's a darkness. There's a dark sense of time. It's almost like there's no sense. There's no sense of time, or it's almost like a fantasy. That's just my perspective. So I'm going to add some add some things to the stream right now. Hope everybody's doing well. Shout out to you. Oh my gosh, thanks so much. The rapper 10,000. Thank you so much for that. I'll be glad to take a look at it. So yes, I'm going to dig a little bit into the wonderful, the cultural Marxism that we have dealt with, that we've been, I mean, the blows to our society, to our culture, in which, you know, this started years ago, and it's, you know, it's mob rule and violence right now is where we are. Let's see. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take you guys to that particular story on the actual what's happening with the cell phone. It's, if you're an Apple product, if you're using Apple, then you know, you might have some idea or some experience as to what I'm talking about. So it's like if you don't comply, you're going to be at risk. So here we go. We have a story from my vetted source, the New American, and it is entitled, "Did your iPhone secretly install a COVID-19 tracker? How to find out." Okay, this is written by Luis Miguel. "Does an apple a day still keep the doctor away, or bring him and Big Brother knocking at your door? Users are reporting that the latest update for iOS, the iPhone's operating system, automatically installed coronavirus contact tracing software onto their phones. The change appears to have come with the update iOS 13.5 back in May and all subsequent updates." Okay, so you have some testimonies that have come out on Twitter. This happens to be from an Aubrey Huff. Says, "Did your phone act up with no service for a few days ago? Or what if I told you they secretly added the hashtag COVID-19 trackers, iPhones, settings, privacy, health? It's there. Awake yet?" So I saw the update. I want to interject that I saw this update when it came up, and I read the fine print, as I tend to do, and I saw that they were. And I delayed this installation, and I do believe that I won't say I'm a victim. I will say that I was subject to this installation or this violation. Let's see. Luciano, I'm going to read your comment here, and I'll go back in. It says, "Black, you'll love this one. Muhammad Ali Jr. said his father would be against." Yes, I saw that. It looks like Breitbart. Breitbart is really hitting you know, coming from the elite perspectives of the celebrities, or the, you know, they're speaking out, or they're lending a voice to those who that are Hollywood, that happen to be more law abiding, or more in line with, you know, the values that are not progressive or leftist, which progressiveness, as I've said before, and I've heard other people say, that it's more regressive. That everything that you see, a lot of things that you're seeing, removing, this is aside from the statue movements, like we've talked about, the whole Aunt Jemima removing that, see, Uncle Ben's, the cream of wheat, all of these changes, specifically the Aunt Jemima and perhaps the Uncle Ben, that is a removal of Black history. But the thing about it is, the same faction of people, they don't really consider, it's more of an alienation, or more of a diminutive status that they're putting the Black community in. Because if you're willing to wipe Black history away, and you're willing to come out and be more offended than Black people are, doesn't that expose you for your racial bias? I mean, and in fact, I will say, there's also a story in which Aunt Jemima's, I think it's her great grandson, has come out and say, this is not acceptable. I think the family has already had some issues with the company in relation to the product. So I don't think we've heard the last from that. So I'm it's nice to see that that her descendant is fighting back in this in preservation of not only the history, but I'm sure they've made a lot of money off of this product over the years. And who knows, but I will certainly be following that story. Thank you so much. I will continue with that. It's just I'm going to continue with your statement, Luciano, that says Ali Jr. said his father would call the movement, quote, racist, end quote, and the protesters, quote, devils, end quote. Well, I can see that. I can see that. But, nothing surprises me. It doesn't surprise me. But I do think that Breitbart has a I think more of a filter for the elite or the celebs, if you will, whether it's good or bad. He has that insight, or that he has a pipeline to bring you that from that side of the culture spectrum, I guess. I mean, I think that's a part of shout out to the definition of anarchy. How are you doing? And the rapper 10,000 says we need militia to fight back. Well, the rapper 10,000, I'm not sure what things are going to look like here. I'm not sure I'm not sure do we even have a plan? Do we have a plan, or things are just going to keep happening? You've got these little enclaves of neo-Marxist and ideologues popping up all over the place. And they're starting to pop up in some of the most unlikely places. And I think that's the shock. I think you're going to start seeing more of these things happen in these rural areas. It's just like a rash. Let's see. Chaz has murdered people again. Yes. The dystopia, the paradise, I don't know. I think I'm going to paraphrase this, and I do believe that I think that President Trump said something, and maybe during the rally, that they were just going to just watch the disaster. There again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure you can find you can find the rally or segments of the rally. Not sure what the mainstream mediocres or media are doing to cover that, if they cover it at all. Sure, they're going to cut it up, but yeah, there's a lot of things happening in Chaz. But let me continue here. I'm going to go back to what's happening with the contact tracer. So I would imagine that everybody should probably keep an eye out on. Shout out to state militias need to take out these Democrat leaders and remove the Chaz zone from the map. There again, I something's going to have to happen, but I don't know what that is. I don't know how you create I don't know the raison d'être. I don't know how they're upholding what they're doing. I don't. But I don't know if I think that I did hear, this is a plural of hearsay, not saying that I'm lending credit to it, but I've heard some things about patriots going in and trying to, I don't know what the plan is to into these, chop zones or Chaz like zones or whatever. I don't know if they're going to, to save these people from save these people from what? Save them from themselves. That's, to me, ultimately what it kind of draws down to. Let's see. Theology forums. I'm going to read some of this. I'm going to keep reading these, and then I'll go back into the iOS contact tracer. Okay. I'm Killer Whale and Patrick Jane forums. I'm going to bust out the politics community soon. Shout out to you, Theology Forums. Shout out to Killer Whale channels. And in just a moment, we're going to do our first minute we're going to take a pause to thank the supporters. And let's see what comment here from Luciano says Fox News I haven't watched since 2005. 2005 needs to step their game up and interview Ali Jr. Hopefully Hannity or Pirro will give him an interview. We'll see. It seems like Fox is, I can't. Fox is not. I think that I'm not sure if they're centrist or what they're doing, what their producers are doing, or what their aim is, but I'm not sure. I can't really follow them. I can see that they still give voice to people that are of conservative mind or people are still of a law and order framework, but I can't say, what they're going to do. I wouldn't hold my breath is what I won't do. Let's see. I think Tucker Carlson is probably the most consistent, and Tucker has been but Tucker, you can find a little bit of nuance, side-eye nuance just about everywhere. But I can say he's probably the most consistent that I've seen. And I think Judge Pirro, she's probably one as well, but I don't know. I'm not sure she's getting as much airtime. I'm not sure about that. Let's see. Theology Forum's Chads could be removed in 10 hours with minimal military stress. Oh, I'm sure. And the Theology Forum says safely. And here, let me just. All right, so I'm going to go back into the story here. Okay, so I'm going to continue on here. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about your iOS phone, your iPhone secretly having installation of a COVID-19 tracker. So that's where we are on this. I'm just going to keep going here. So the tracking option was installed discreetly on users' phones without announcement. You can check it. It can be toggled on or off by going to settings, privacy, or health. So if you have an iPhone, you might want to take a look at that. Also, the option is titled, quote, COVID-19 exposure logging, end quote, and features the directions, the following description. When enabled, iPhone can exchange random IDs with other devices using Bluetooth. This enables an app to notify you if you have been exposed to COVID-19. Exposure logging cannot access any data or add any data to the health app. Android users have found that Google installs similar settings on their operating systems. Okay, so if you are an Android user, there you go. You're going to go, Android has it too. This comes from Dana Karanji. She says that you're going to go to your settings, Google, and it's the first option. So you can find out whether you're already toggled on or whether that option is off. So I guess it's up to you. Okay. So there again, you got the control factor, the control element of Google. I mean, not Google, the control element of iPhone. So there you get, if they can do that, what else can they do? This is a potentially a Fourth Amendment violation right away. It's not potentially, it is a Fourth Amendment violation. If they're going in installing things without you knowing it, or if they are obstructing the usage of your device, then that puts them in control, right? You as the individual didn't have any choice. So that gets to be the problem with the Apple products. They want to circumvent everything. You notice even the actual spell check. It's disastrous the way they try to anticipate what you're saying. It's disastrous when you're trying to add a contact. You can't find a contact because they corrected it into someone else's. It turned into somebody else's name, and then I can't find it in my contacts, even though I know I put them there. So it's interesting enough what's going on there. So I'm going to finish that one. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Shout out to the loyal patrons, Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, the Angel Munez Variety Show, Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, and Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to you guys. If you guys could do a huge favor and make sure you still subscribe to the channel. I do believe that the battle for not only Channelytics and the accuracy of that is, of course, under attack, but also just double check and make sure that you're still subscribed to the actual channel. And also, if you could hit the like button or the unlike button, that's at your discretion. I really appreciate it. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for coming in. And also, I encourage everyone to keep an eye on the community tab. I will be making some announcements pretty soon, as well as check out your Patreon tab. Oops. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. I want to shout out Delacta Camille. Bonjour, mon ami. Ça va? We said Luciano, Alien Believers, the Rapper 10,000. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels, Theology Forums, Patrick Jane Forums. Shout out to you. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for coming in. Also, just about everyone, many people that are subscribers to the channel, just, you guys want to get acquainted with each other, network. I always encourage you to do that, but just do it on a covert kind of a level. You can communicate, use everything except for, I guess, the word subscribe. That is not a good word to use in the community. I will be updating some of the standards for the community as we go forward. And also at this time, I'm going to take a little bit of an opportunity here to thank the loyal patrons. And then I'll get right back in just a minute to the story. Oops, that's not the right one. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the loyalty from everyone. If you're looking for channels, great content creators, you can find those throughout the channel, throughout the subscribers. And you'll find that amongst the loyal patrons: Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, the Angel Munez Variety Show, Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, and Chrysler Imperial H. If you're looking for live streams, if you're looking for networking on some levels, check out the loyal patrons. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. So I'll go ahead and continue with the actual story. So we'll go ahead and finish that one out. That one's taking a little bit of time. But, okay, so here we have also in this particular article, this story, that's because the exposure notification program was in fact co-developed by Apple and Google, despite Apple's assurance that an iPhone will not enable the tracking feature if the user toggles it off. Some are worried that the company will continue to gather the information without the user's consent. And that's exactly where I'm going with this Fourth Amendment violation, at least. So here again, someone else is suggesting that, honestly, this is from Twitter. Evan says, honestly, even if you turn it off, I'm assuming it's still on. This is just one of big tech's recent efforts to monitor people's personal information under the guise of stopping the spread of the coronavirus. Japan rolled out a Microsoft-developed COVID-19 contact tracing app called Coco. The company's engineers were hired by Japan in May, and they based their app on Apple's and Google's notification program. The coronavirus outbreak unleashed on America and the world a plague of big government social controls. The TNA has reported on the use by several U.S. local police agencies of drones manufactured by a Chinese government-linked firm to enforce the COVID-19 lockdowns. In other states, government officials have tracked citizens' cell phone data to observe their movement and to see whether they are following social distancing guidelines or not. And in Baltimore, authorities instituted a new program that uses high-tech aerial surveillance to keep watch on city residents all day when outdoors, even in their own driveways and yards. Not surprisingly, Arnold Ventures, the group that donated millions of dollars for the program, has partnered with George Soros' Open Society Foundations and the Ford Foundations, among others. Other causes the nonprofit has promoted include open primaries, abortion, Planned Parenthood, and funding the Wikimedia Foundation. Despite the establishment's concerns about the rise in coronavirus cases, the preoccupation does not extend to the mass protests being held by Black Lives Matters and other left-wing groups in response to George Floyd's death. The politicians that vilify patriots for getting out of their homes to protest unconstitutional lockdowns, and who are even now excoriating President Trump for resuming his political rallies, are the same ones praising BLM demonstrators, even though such protests have at times had attendees in the thousands and would thus provide ample opportunity for the virus to spread. In New York, in fact, where the government is still trying to keep children out of parks, contact tracers hired by that same government are now allowed to ask anyone who has tested positive for COVID-19 if they've participated in the recent protests. Defenders of omitting questioning about the protest and contact tracing interviews claim it's necessary to maintain trust so that subjects will give truthful responses. Quote, I think the logic has to do with the fact that contact tracing requires a strong level of trust between the interviewer and the person they're talking to, end quote, said Dr. S. Patrick Kuchar, a professor at Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health and former official at the CDC and Prevention. Digging deeper, however, reveals a true agenda. The Clintons, George Soros, Bill Gates, and other globalist entities are heavily involved in contact tracing initiatives. In light of the coronavirus madness, the constitutionalist John Birch Society has warned against letting the pandemic hysteria push us into accepting a police state. Quote, we ought not to let the deep state, the government, and big tech compel Americans into surrendering their God-given rights and freedoms under any circumstances, end quote, said the JBS. Quote, returning to normal, quote, normal does not and should never entail granting the government a massive overreach of power at the expense of liberty, end quote. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I'm going to take to some comments right here from Luciano. This is a Michigan governor who banned seeds and punished barbers and other small businesses is now wants a bailout from Trump. Aw, poor baby. Imagine that. Let's see. Oh, wow. Theology forums. You're absolutely amazing. I appreciate you, everything that you do. That's very amazing. Appreciate you for the support. Thank you so much. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels, Patrick Jane forums, and theology forums. If you're looking for great content, great guests, looking for live streams, and just a warm spirit and just a very inviting spirit, you will be well received if you check out Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much, Killer Whale Channels. Shout out to Luciano. Shout out to the rapper 10,000. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for joining me today. And shout out to the rapper 10,000. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to I don't know why. It's Alien Believers, not Alan Believers. Thank you so much, Alan Believers, for being here. Shout out to you. Shout out to Camille. Shout out to you. Let's see. You know what? I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure if you guys can maybe recall, California is going through something similar. California is going through something similar with Gavin Newsom. But, the thing about it is with all the corruption and all the citizens and there is a faction that is fighting back hard against the measures, including this expansion on the lockdowns, the further suppression of the economies. It's happening. So I think the state is doing what they can do right now. I'm not saying that they cannot do more, but I think there's going to be another attempt to recall Newsom. I know that there is. Let's see. I'm going to show, okay, here's a comment from the rapper 10,000. He says, some white people may have to die for black communities to be made whole, end quote. That's from a far left UGA teaching assistant on Black Lives Matter movement. Wow. Shout out to Technical YC. Shout out to Technical YC. I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in today. So we're going to move on to another story. Hope everybody's doing well on your Monday. Hope everybody's doing well. So we're going to go on right now. Now, of course, you guys, I'm not sure what over the weekend, I know we've all heard, there's something going on all the time. There's never a shortage of news. I think we can all agree there. All right, so we'll move on to another story. And that story we'll take a look at just really quickly. Governor Northam, he seems to stay in the news, and he's on the statue grab, the Robert E. Lee statue. And of course, there are other Confederate monuments that are at risk or have been at least toppled by the mob. And of course, that some of that seems to be what happens on the weekends. You've got the mob and the violent faction running through, mutilating and desecrating and defacing statues. And all history isn't pretty history, but it is. And I think we're already repeating history. Like we're repeating history we're repeating the histories of other nations. They've already experienced. Some of the European nations have already experienced. Other civilizations have already experienced some of the decline and the fall of our, if you want to call it an empire, and it's falling from, it seems to be falling from within. We have no one standing up, no one speaking out. Instead we have people taking a knee and giving people space to act out, if you will. So here we are. Think about this particular story. There seems to be conflicting reports on there is a mod here. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. He says there is a mod. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to share a screen with you guys in just a second on this particular story, because it's just another story on, of course, the monuments and the statues. And of course, you guys spoke about the Theodore Roosevelt statue in New York. I think, and that's why I entitled this stream "What's on the Docket," because many of these issues, or these stays of property, they're all going to end up on somebody's docket. And the Supreme Court is another part of this, what's on the docket. So let's go ahead and take a look at some statue business, statue grabs, if you will. Hope everybody's doing well. Shout out to anybody that's just coming into the stream. Okay, so here we go. There's no audio on this one, but I'm just going to go ahead and share it anyway. Okay, so this is coming from the TNA, the vetted source, the TNA. And on this particular story, we have the circuit court judge who temporarily blocked the removal of Robert E. Lee's statue in Richmond on June 8th has extended his order indefinitely and given the plaintiff in the lawsuit against Governor Ralph Northam 21 days to prove standing to sue. Okay, so this is written by R. Court Kirkwood from the TNA. And here it says, Judge Bradley Cavedo flatly told the governor he does not own the statue and cannot remove it, suggesting that if Northam can remove Lee, he can remove any statue he wants. Northam's legal hitman, Attorney General Mark Herring, promised unending legal war until Lee's monument is removed. What will happen to the statue after it is removed? is unknown, although Northam, Herring, and the gang of violent iconoclast rabble likely want it destroyed. So, of course, you had, to paraphrase here, you had an original lawsuit after Northam ordered the statue removed on June 4th because, quote, in Virginia, we no longer preach a false version of history. Preach a false version of history that pretends the Civil War was about, quote, states' rights, end quote, and not the evils of slavery. William Gregory's suit to stop the leftist governor. And this is really despicable. Is history really that unclear that they can't figure out? We're really doing a cause and effect. This is the problem. This is the problem that the left always controls the narrative, whether it's based on truth or not. Okay, so Gregory argued that Northam, who dabbled in minstrelsy during medical school, can't remove the statue because doing so would break the contract that Governor P.W. McKinney signed with Gregory's great-grandparents, Roger Gregory and Betty F. Allen Gregory, in 1890. The contract deeded the land where the monument sits to Virginia and requires Virginia to, quote, faithfully guard it and affectionately protect it, end quote. If the injunction is not granted, the defendant will be free to remove the Lee monument. The removal will inherently result in irreparable harm to the plaintiff. His family has taken pride for 130 years in the statue resting upon the land belonging to his family and transferred to the Commonwealth in consideration of the Commonwealth contractually guaranteeing to perpetually care for and protect the Lee monument. And Quevedo agreed. Gregory is, quote, likely to prevail on his claim, end quote, he wrote, and there is a likelihood of irreparable harm to the statue if removed as proposed by defendants. As well, he ruled it is in the public interest to await resolution of this case on the merits prior to removal of the statue by defendants, and the public interest weighs in favor of maintaining the status quo, end quote. And, quote, little harm will be suffered by defendants by the issuance of a temporary injunction, end quote. And so Northam's plan to begin erasing the memory of one of the nation's greatest heroes had to wait. Okay, so this is bringing us into Thursday. On Thursday, Quevedo cemented that the order indefinitely, but did rule that Gregory had not proved he had the standing to sue the governor. Gregory has 3 weeks to make his case. Herring, another of the Virginia Democrats partial to wearing blackface, was not too happy about it and promised to, quote, use every legal avenue we have, end quote, to tear the monument down, the Washington Post reported. Quote, the governor has the authority, end quote, to take down the statue, Herring averred, in falsely claiming it is, quote, a symbol of Virginia's racist past. So here I'll round this one out with Herring said Gregory did not have the ability to veto the governor's direction, the Post reported, and that, quote, the governor is the person who is in a position to make those decisions and is the democratically elected person to represent the views of the entire Commonwealth, end quote. Not so, said Quevedo, who offered the reductio ad absurdum of the governor's claim. Quote, the state seems to think that the monument is the property of the governor, end quote, Quevedo said. Quote, my view is that the monument is the property of the people of the Commonwealth and that the governor is more of a custodian or fiduciary on their behalf. All right, so we're going to just round this one out. But that won't matter much given the vandalism of Confederate monuments and even a statue of Christopher Columbus. After Quevedo's ruling on June 8th, vandals tore down the statue of Confederate President Jefferson Davis and then threw a Columbus state statue in a lake, and Northam did nothing. Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney has promised to remove the other Confederate monuments as soon as possible after a new state law that permits localities to decide on such memorials takes effect on July 1st. So there you go. I don't know if you have any statues in your area, but you might check it out. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. I'm going to take you to an actual video next where we have some white guilt that comes from someone that's ordained of another order. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Oh, look who's here. Shout out to Sandy K. Nice to see you. Sandy K. Say Killer Whale Channels. How are you doing, Sandy K? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and share this story with you. It's coming from none other than the papacy. So I know if you're Catholic, I'm not sure what your guys' who you guys are accountable to when your religious convictions, but here, this is going to be coming from, it's going to be a clip of the Pope. Once again, I'd like to shout everyone out that's in the stream. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm hanging around. Thank you so much for coming in today, Sandy K. It's been a lifetime, it seems. Hope you are doing well where you are. Let's see. Yeah, I do think that the Pope has, this Pope, I think, has a very specific agenda. And it's very much, listen, these people, these figures that we've held up, or that people look to, it's the UN agenda is generally where you can find their convictions. They parrot UN agenda 21 or either 2030 agenda concepts or the framework. It's all around that. So there's not a mystery there. I'm going to go ahead and oh, thanks so much, Sandy K. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for all that you do. And right before I take you to that clip, let's just take a moment. And take a moment. So here again are our patrons. Shout out to Kimon Reed, Unstoppable. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Shout out to you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the next clip. Hope everybody's doing well. Then I will open up with a link in just a little while. Hope everybody's doing well on your Monday and you're off to a great start. Shout out to everyone that's in the stream. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Shout out to Sandy K. Shout out to everyone that's come in. I hope everybody's doing well. And if you could do the channel a favor and just hit that like button or the unlike button. It's all about Channelytics here. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And my gosh, if you dare share this stream out, you might even, I don't know, you might do something else for the Channelytics. Who knows? I mean, it really helps you guys make the difference on this channel. Shout out to you. Please keep an eye on the community tab, on your community tab. You'll be getting more updates. There's going to be some very special things coming to the channel, and I think it's going to help. It's going to assist with the season that we're already in terms of elections. It might even help you with your influence in your community. So just hang on and keep an eye on that community tab. Let's see. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. All right, so let's do that clip, and then I'm probably going to go ahead and put the link out. Hope everybody's doing well on your Monday. A lot going on. No shortage of goings on for sure. Okay, so here we are. Uh-oh. here you have a picture of Pope Francis kissing the feet of the Sudan leaders, calling for peace. Okay, so look no further than your UN.org. If you guys are not sure where these convictions are coming from, it's, you know, I guess when the Pope's doing this, you know, he's says this has happened at the end of a spiritual retreat at the Vatican. So if you're not kneeling, you're kissing feet, right? Is that the I mean, this is some type of a ritual. The pontiff urged the leaders and other Sudanese officials. So you can, if you can see this, if you're witnessing this, all right. Sorry about the panda takeover there, but as you can see, you know, you've got. I'm going to go ahead and open up this segment, and of course we'll get into other news, but I'll go ahead and open it up. Hope everybody's doing well and that you are safe where you are and you're not dealing with too much mob action, or you, I guess, in the words of a friend of mine, you're staying locked and loaded. I guess that's what you need to do. All right, so shout out to everybody in the stream. I'm going to go through and do a couple of shout outs. There is a link in the stream, and I will be updating the community standards because this is the summer of dissent, as I've titled this this summer season, the summer live streams, because there are a lot of inflammatories. There's a lot of cultural inflammatories. There's a lot of ideological inflammatories going on. What can I say? Shout out to Old Head Deuce. None of this fluff is real change. Symbolically, what is this signifying? Good point, Old Head Deuce. Good point. What's the takeaway? What do you take away? It's almost like it's symbolic. It's a dark symbolic. It's dark symbolic. It's, to me, it's whether you're religious or not, it's blasphemous. I think you could be blasphemous without relating, you know, tying something to a religious context or doctrine. You know, I think it's there's some blasphemous things going on. It's some insulting things going on, suggestive things going on. Shout out to Kim Reed, Unstoppable, Old Head Deuce. The rapper 10,000 says, notice how the women at these BLM riots are against fathers, and just like feminists want to cancel Father's Day. Now, I did not hear that. I had not heard of that. The rapper 10,000. That's very interesting. I'm not surprising, but it's more than interesting. It's, you know, I find that this is a bitter and unhappy people that are just unhappy. And to me, this is a culture of these schools, these colleges, these public squares, these grassy knolls of teaching. They're teaching and indoctrinating these kids to be miserable. They want to deconstruct everything, throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. They want to deconstruct every single thing. And then what? They're so progressive that they're going backwards. And of course, they don't miss an opportunity. They never miss out on a crisis either. You know, this is radical. You know, Old Head Deuce says many grants and loans are out here. Young Guns, please fill out the paperwork. Yes. So I'm going to keep shouting out people in the stream. I'm going to read this from Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much, Killer Whale Channel. Seriously, I do not feel guilt for what other people did other than myself. I feel guilt for my thoughts, behaviors, and actions. I own that bit. I don't own other people's stuff. Thank you for that, Killer Whale. And here's the thing about this I want to say this. You know, this is a sharing community, but I try to avoid placing blame, because I do believe that I do believe that we all are responsible for our own actions individually, but I do believe that the left and the progressives, they don't look, they look extensively, they look externally for blame. And I do believe that people that are more conservative, they tend to look within themselves. And when you're looking within yourself, you're trying to figure out things that you can do individually to make, whether it's your livelihood better, whether you can improve. What can you do to be more informed? What can you do to earn more money? What can you do to make maybe your children's lives better? What can you do? How can you communicate better with your children or your family or even your friends? I'm not looking for others. I'm not looking for someone else. I'm not trying to tear someone else down, or I'm not looking to my skin color to fulfill everything that I might, that could possibly be, or to mitigate something that, I didn't directly experience. I'm not looking for that. And this is not, this show, we will share opinions here always, but you will also need to know that the opinions that everyone that appear on the show, they're not going to be necessarily represent the platform of this show. And perhaps that needs to be, if I need to add some type of disclaimer or caveat to put that on, because this is the United States of America, and everyone is welcome on this platform. I'm not here to alienate, ostracize anyone at any time, but there will be things that will be attributed to, there will be things that the cause and the effect, and sometimes the effect is worse than the cause. And we all have to recognize that. And we do have a history is decadent. But then why do we, but going forward, if we're progressive, why do we want to lead in anything that might be destructive? Or I don't want to be led by decadence. I don't. We need to improve. We all do. And Old Head Dude says, yeah, keep an eye on Sudan. Yeah, I think everything right now is very, you know, especially on a worldwide scale, because I think many people, they don't really, everything that's going on is not just limited to the US, it's happening everywhere. There's representation. There's these ideologues and these ideologies, they're being represented all over the world. I mean, for one, let's say, for instance, BLM has the support of George Soros, the Open Society, Hillary Clinton. They have gained a lot of traction. They've gained the funding. I think the leader of that group, I can't her I know her name is Patrice something, but yeah, I think I think her ultimate goal is to gain political power, and I think that she has. I mean, philanthropy, on the philanthropic perspective, they've got backings. They've got, maybe they're up to $100 million, I think, on the record. But I think they're going to gain more if they can do, if it can assist if it'll assist in, the US. I do think this is more of an anti-American, and I do think that they're being exploited on that level. I think they're going to exploit BLM, they're going to exploit these groups, and then they're going to do away with them. If they think they can take down America and take down the values, they're going to keep funding them until they think they are successful, until they install what they want, until they get what they want. Sandy K, I'm going to read your comment here. It says, everything that was taught about history is being tossed In 10 years, if we are here, our children and grandchildren are going to have to learn what? All I can say, Sandy, I'm sorry, I'm having a moment there. All I can say, it's very dark. This is all very, very dark. What we're coming up to. I mean, the history, when you think about it, you have these colleges, in which the liberals and the progressives are the ones that are, your elite schools are represented by mostly progressives and liberals. What have we all known, that what the Ivy League schools, the Harvards, the Yales, these are the people that are writing the textbooks. These are the people that are teaching your children. These are the people that are changing the definitions of what it means to have an ADA or a changing the laws, changing the definitions on diverse learning. So they are going to determine the future of history, and they're going to delete, and they're going to, who knows? It's a very scary thing. I guess only thing I can say is we do need to rescue these kids if we can, in terms of education. I think that's why a lot of people are kind of turning to homeschooling, or so that they have some idea of not only what's going on, but that the cultural Marxism is not, reforming the way these kids think, because they're going after the kids. Because according to the UN, the children are the agents of change. You guys remember Greta Thunberg? They exalted her to talk to you, to try to convince you guys about things like climate change. And she happens to be a child that has, I think, I'm not sure what specific form of, is it Asperger's. She has a disability in herself. So, we put the person that's the thing. That's the next social group. If you're the next social group, it's almost like you need to run for the hills, because they're going to start treating you like a commodity. The disability group is now a commodity, because they've got something for everybody, for their little neo their little neo slavery. It's a new slavery is what they're creating. They're creating new standards for oppression. And it's almost like there needs to be another movement. I just find that the conservatives are just so silent right now. It's more than disconcerting. It's horrible. I've heard only from a few people, and that's on social media. They're not covering all you can see from these conservatives or even Democrats. All you see throughout the social media, they're all trying to earn money or rally people for their seats right now. And I'm just thinking at many times, like, what are you guys actually doing? What are you doing? I didn't even read this. Kimon Reed, Unstoppable, says, I think that the other countries and the other African countries are being manipulated. Yes, and they've been doing it. They're not trying to make these places, and that's the thing. It's the same game. Even China, for instance, they've gone over and they've been doing some levels of infrastructure and building a lot of things. But are they interested in making those people solvent, environmentally solvent, financially solvent? I'm not convinced about that. I think that they're going to be stepping stones. It's the same. I think it's the same thing. Same thing with these little groups here, these little terrorists or little organized groups. BLMs, the Antifas, whatever. You're just a stepping stone, and you're going to be lined up, and you're going to be discarded once they're done with you. If they say your time's up, or you're a threat to my advancement, bye-bye. We're done with you. Oh wow, Sandy, that's awesome. You homeschool your grandkids. Well, I really think that that's, it's really getting dark, because even they're offering, I think even in California, they've added some level of the sex education is being offered even down to kindergarten now. That's another show. I'm not going to get into that. But you want to look out, that's a part of the UN agenda as well. These are the convictions of the UN. And in order for them to be successful, America has to be destroyed. Like, and I think on some level, they are successful. They have been successful at least introducing these things. If it's going to stick, I don't know. I think it's going to be up to the people. It's going to be up to the people. Let's see. It says, Old Head Deuce says, in the future, educational software is where the money is at. Thank you so much, Old Head Deuce, for sharing that. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to move on to the next story. And there is a link out there for anyone that's interested in coming up. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring. Just going to check and see what's happening here. I'm finding myself monitoring the channelytics. Let's see. Really appreciate you guys. Let's see. Probably so. Okay. So I'm going to take you guys to another story. Now, I've talked a little bit about the Supreme Court. Of course, there's been at least two rulings that have happened. And I've talked about this before, like everything that the Democrats have proposed over the last 3 years, you're getting bits and pieces of it already, whether you want. It's almost like, are we inevitably going to succumb or have to submit to these things? Because you're seeing a lot of what they want to implement. They want they want a socialist government. They almost want you to be all like Europe, the biggest thing you control is where you go on vacation. So here, what I'm going to share with you is more social protections. I've talked about this even in that USMCA. Everybody's, oh, it's such a great idea. But then, did anybody actually read that document? It was full of social protections. So then when everybody goes, oh, the crowd goes boo, when the Supreme Court hands down something that's basically another extension or another expansion of these ideas, the Democrats' ideology show up in every single bill, every single law, every single stimulus package. Is anybody surprised? But there were protections, there were social protections, there were things on immigration inside that USMCA bill. There were social protections for the LGBT community as to the HR 5, which says that anybody can use the restroom. Basically anybody who identifies whatever they want to identify with, they can go in and use the restroom. I don't know if you guys have daughters or kids, but I would think that would be a huge concern of mine. So if they just keep they keep sliding things through, and these judges, like what Justice Roberts claims, he claims his approach is less restraint and he's more of an interpreter of law versus a creator. Well, it's starting to look more like, that it looks like that they are not acting, they are actually making laws, which they don't have the authority, the enumerated powers. They don't have the power to create laws. That's Congress should be creating the laws and mitigating and doing the reforms on immigration, but they're not doing what they need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take you to this actually comes from Fox. Every now and then you might get some, you just end up, you see all these sources and their perspective is not very consistent at times, but at times you can at least start there and then just kind of work your way into more sources. It's just, it just seems like, Fox is not quite, they're not very consistent at all. And I'm not even a big subscriber to the channel, but I'll go ahead and play this clip for you guys. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Yes, Rapper 10,000. Yes, they are activists. You've got judges that are more activists than they are judges. You've got doctors that are more activists than they are doctors. You've got teachers that are more activists than they are teachers. You've got a dentist that's more activist than he's a dentist. And they're all a part of the former technocracy. I don't know if you guys, anybody that joined me on the segment with Mary Baker and Patrick Wood, we talked about who's actually pulling the strings, and they're everywhere. They are everywhere. So if Roberts wants to call himself conservative, I think he's more, I wouldn't call him conservative. He was, and by the way, it doesn't help that he was appointed by George W. Bush. So, go figure on that one. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip for you guys. Hope everybody's doing well. And thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring. Shout out to everybody in the stream. This one has audio.
Two Supreme Court rulings, both of them setbacks for the Trump administration, got huge coverage this week. Much of the media focus is on Trump appointing Neil Gorsuch, who went against the president on a gay rights ruling, as did John Roberts, who also wrote the decision saying the administration didn't take adequate steps to end the Docket program, which has protected the Dreamers from deportation. The president ripped these rulings, calling them shotgun blasts into the face of people that are proud to call themselves Republicans or conservatives.
The violent rhetoric is the sort of thing you would expect from a totalitarian leader, from an autocrat trying to incite violence against judges.
And just like in the case of Obamacare, it was Chief Justice John Roberts joining the four liberals on the court to make a highly technical, ridiculous to me argument that benefited the Obama administration.
And the president made it personal, tweeting, "Do you get the impression that the Supreme Court doesn't like me?" Kat Tiff, some conservative commentators really harshly and personally criticizing Neil Gorsuch and John Roberts, but didn't they pledge to review everything on a case-by-case basis? Roberts called it calling balls and strikes. Now, should pundits be sort of slamming them as for betraying the cause when they're supposed to act as justices?
Right. The Supreme Court is not supposed to be political one way or another. They're not supposed to like you or not like you. It's not supposed to be about that. But again, the whole discussion was political. I'm someone who stands with Dreamers. These people are not criminals. They came here as kids. Illegal entry is a misdemeanor. They came here as kids. If your parents say you're moving, you gotta move, right? But then at the same time, you look at it, this was done by executive order. Why couldn't it be undone by executive order? So if you keep the focus on the actual law, that would be better than making it so political the way that we see both sides doing when we discuss these things.
Right. The case began with the much criticized Obama executive order, but Richard Fowler, aren't the media, which largely support gay and transgender rights, as well as the Dreamers, kind of impressed with Gorsuch and Roberts because they voted the way that they prefer?
I'm not sure if the media supports or doesn't support them. I think the media is covering where the American people are. I think if you look at both of these issues and you were to do a poll amongst majority of Americans, they would say they're in support of gay folks, LGBTQ Americans, not being fired from their jobs and being protected by the law. And they're also in favor, as Kat just pointed out, for Dreamers, people who came to this country at no fault of their own staying here. But if you read the rulings, right, of Justice Roberts in the DACA case, he is very clear. He said this is not about the political nature of DACA. This is about how this administration operated. And the media, I think, has missed that coverage because this is a larger problem, whether it's John Bolton's book, whether it's other issues. The problem here is how Donald Trump and his administration operates. Do they abide by the law? Do they follow the rules? And a lot of times they don't. And this is why the Supreme Court ruled against them in this particular case.
It is true this was a procedural ruling. Trump actually said it was kind of a victory because they just have to refile the paperwork, but it was a setback, no question about it. And Kat, immigration had kind of faded as a hot political issue. Do you think the media now are going to seize on this and try to make the fate of the Dreamers and immigration more broadly a hot campaign issue going into the fall?
It may. I never try to guess anymore because things change so quickly. But I think that part of the confusion also comes from some of the reporting. New York Times first headline on this was the Supreme Court says Trump can't end DACA. And then it was changed to can't immediately end DACA. So it was more complicated. We got to focus on the law and not just political.
And Richard, you talked about the Dreamers, and the media loves this controversy, but I think the reason this may not go on forever is that nobody actually really, whether it's Donald Trump, the Republicans, or the Democrats, wants to kick 700,000 to 800,000 Dreamers out of the country. As you say, they were brought here as kids. It wasn't their decision. It was that you can certainly criticize the parents for breaking the law. And I wonder how much that's reflected in the coverage. I mean, Trump ended the program, but he says he wants to forge a compromise.
I hope there's a compromise, and I hope nobody wants to kick these 700,000 almost Americans out this country. But let's be very clear. This president tweets every single day law and order, and herein lies the problem. He is a hypocrite because he doesn't abide by those same law and orders that he tweets about. Because if he did, then his decision on DACA would have stood, right? If he did, we wouldn't be having every time we go to the Supreme Court and they say we're ruling against the president because he's chosen not to follow the rules, even though he's asking the American people to follow those rules.
Kat, I got about 20 seconds. I don't think it makes the president a hypocrite that he tried to end the program that was imposed by executive order. And of course, the Supreme Court has final say. Quick thought.
I think that for the Dreamers, they need the protection to be done through, that can only be done through Congress. I think that should legislate something here rather than get in these political fights over executive order here, executive over there, because it didn't make sense. You couldn't undo it, but Obama could do it. Right. Let's end the debate by doing something at the legislative level because it's Congress's job to do that.
It's when Congress drops the ball that the courts have to act as legislatures. Got to go. Richard Fowler, Kat Timpf, thanks for.
All right, guys. So yeah, thanks so much about that. So thanks so much, Old Head Deuce. But yeah, they this is Old Head Deuce says people just vote to be mean. That's another problem. Well, I can see that it's not, I don't think it's ever going to be consistent. I think what they're expressing there is some type of maybe buyers trying to, is in one way, they're almost saying, you know, you've got somebody who touts themselves as a conservative, but then every time they vote, they're voting. To me, they're voting in the interest of globalism or under the UN agenda. Those convictions are what they are considering. And I don't know if DACA is here to stay. I don't know. I do think that it's probably going to come up again. And I think it's probably temporary because, I mean, the executive order, I'm not sure what the rules are on the executive orders, but I would think that maybe an executive order is something that could be overturned. But I don't, like I said, I don't know. But here again, these executive orders come up because the Congress is not handling, they have, you know, you've got the left majority in the House. They've refused to work with I remember during last year, I think Trump put something on the table for DACA, for the wall. And they wouldn't come back. They basically said, no, you're not giving them enough security in their positions. You're not granting amnesty. So they ended up not doing anything on that. So it's just a back and forth kind of lobby rally. It's so yeah, he's come to the table and they want all or nothing. They want all their globalist boxes checked or nothing. And so this guy says, oh, I just, you know, you had one, the guy in the middle saying that, you know, this is reflecting what the media wants to put out about the judgment or the Trump administration. And then he goes, no, I think this is what the American people want. And I'm just saying, how do you guys really know unless you're taking, they're assuming that that's what the American people want, or they're assuming that the media, which the media does control the narrative when it comes to many of these left and these agendas. I think he was more accurate on that, the correspondent there. So, we'll have, of course, there'll be more coming out of I think there'll be more issues coming from the Supreme Court, just because that's what we have. That's what we got. That's what we're working with. So shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Let's see, who else do we have? The Rapper 10,000. Shout out to you guys. Alien Believer. Shout out to you. Shout out to Sandy K. Theology Forums, Patrick Jane Forums, Killer Whale Channel. Shout out to you. Shout out to Sandy K. Shout out to Kimon Reed, Unstoppable. Let's see, who else do we have here? I think am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anybody. I think it's Theology Forums. Luciano, shout out to you if you're still here. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for coming in. Let's see, who else do we have? Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to you. Shout out to Delact Camille. Shout out to you. Let's see, what else do we have here? Thank you so much, Old Head Deuce. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to keep going here. Hope everybody's doing well in the stream. So we had a lot. We actually had a shooting in Minneapolis over the weekend. I'm telling you, it's just like nonstop. There is nonstop news going on. And, it's funny that Minneapolis is having a lot of this action. Unfortunately, the George Floyd situation happened there, along with, they're also it's pretty convenient that all these coalitions that are calling for the defunding of police and all these things, they actually are being funded. What is it? Black Voices or Black Visions, something Black Visions, I believe. And those are all supported by George Soros. I mean, is anybody surprised? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to a little bit of the shooting incidents that occurred over the weekend. And yeah, so I'm just thinking that, I think there's something that's going to end up coming out of, it's almost like Minneapolis is some type of neo-Marxist or neo birthplace of some false civil rights movement that they're trying to recreate. And I think it's all going to happen because what are they going to do? They're going to harken back to the George Floyd situation. They're going to, harken back to the defund the police. They're going to harken back to, they're going to be trying to police their own community, or come up with something that's probably not going to work out well for everyone. And it's still going to be, it's not going to represent everyone. Okay, so shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys so much for being here on this segment. Thank you so much. Come on, Reed, Unstoppable. Thank you so much for coming in. The Rapper 10,000 says we need to fight back hard because crime will skyrocket. Yes, it is. It is going. That's exactly what's going to happen. And then, of course, you have all these ideologues that some people want to bring in their own idea of protection, or it's like, you're starting to rewrite. If you say no one can enforce the law, you don't want a law enforcement representative, then what? Then are we going to erase what laws are going to go next? you erase the law enforcement, then what's next on the docket? You erase the laws, and then you get something else that's much more extreme. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play this clip for you guys. Hope everybody's doing well. Oh, yeah, it's definitely about power. It's about power. And I think, unfortunately, they're opening up to, eventually we're going to be opened up to some type of centralized, centralized policing. I mean, what you got centralized, and this is all communist-based kind of stuff. You can find it in the Communist Manifesto. Centralized education. You're getting perverted. Centralized education, centralized banking, centralized police, centralized healthcare. You're moving towards all of these things that's going to ultimately involve agencies, government agencies, or for global governance. This is what that would be my concern. So here we go with the next. This is from the Minneapolis the Minneapolis shooting. So all of a sudden they've already started, the police, the blue flu is happening everywhere and the pressure is on. So are you safer without police? We'll find out, right? Or they're going to find out. And why are we negotiating with terrorists? They're the terrorist groups. Why? Thanks so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
12:35 a.m., Minneapolis police received a report of multiple shots being fired on the 2900 block of Hennepin Avenue South. Multiple 911 callers then advised that the shooting was continuing northbound on Hennepin. It went down for the block and persons scattered.
We're just saying that there's a line outside the door, just like there were, at all the other restaurants and bars. We saw, gunshots. They're saying right over here by the bike racks. And, I saw people just shooting just 30, 40, 50 shots. I don't know. It sounded like an automatic gun. And I think, and then, some people got shot. At that moment, everybody kind of like dropped to the ground and we're kind of like scrambling to come inside because it was, outside is where the shooting was. So inside would have been, theoretically a lot safer to be. And then, everyone inside was just kind of like scrambling and running and like, and so as soon as, shots were starting to fire, I dropped down and then I kind of like, made my way inside and then started directing the traffic inside, letting everyone know exits this way. It was definitely more than two people involved. It was definitely like a gunfight, a gun shootout. They had to have started over here on the sidewalk and, kind of made their way out to the middle of the street here, shooting back and forth. That's why there's broken glass over here and over here. And also like right next to our building, there's a broken window. So like in order to hit that angle, you have to be in the middle of the street, basically. It's a very wild time right now for the city of Minneapolis. And there's a lot of civil unrest and just people are going, wild.
Shout out to everybody in the stream. It's really, I don't know how to shout seriously, Omar. Yes, because you can see this is all isn't it a little bit convenient that all of this is happening? I mean, you've got a huge Somalian community in Minneapolis. And who's the one who always purports disdain and how sinful America is and how 9/11, some people did something? I mean, is this really not, this is total infiltration. It's total infiltration. In fact, the squad is on tap with BLM. And not to mention, in fact, let me bring you that. I want to bring you the interview from BLM's founder. I mean, frankly, Obama basically endorsed BLM a long time ago. So I'm just thinking we got a lot of leads, but are we ignoring them? I mean, I just don't know how we can have so many leads and then not making, why are people not being taken down? And it seems like all this stuff that's going on right now is actually, distracting from whatever investigations that they were doing. I mean, have they put all of that on hold? I just don't. It's just not. I'm not sure. I can't be sure whether you follow Q or any of those other leads or any of that other information, those other sources of information. I mean, how do you know? I mean, that's why people get so disconcerted with the whole with politics and everything. We don't see anyone being brought to justice. We see people on the right going down and indictments and investigations handed out easily. But it seems that it's the opposite thing. So here we're going to bring you Patrisse Cullors. Now she's the artist, organizer, freedom fighter. This is a interesting interview, and I find that it leaves out many things. There's a lot of unanswered questions in this interview. Let's see. Shout out to everyone in the stream. Old Head Deuce. Did I see the Minnesota cops shopping and got checked? No. Old Head Deuce says Omar is pleased with the chaos. Let those black leaders run Chaz and see how long it would last. Do you know Queen Supreme 369? No, I don't. Shout out to you, Omar. Yeah, I'm sure she is. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to bring you. This is the organizer. See, this is all Obama's domain, because he had a background in terms of a community organizer. And to me, he's an agitator. He's also running what I believe is more of an agitative. He's in the background. He's also in the background, because honestly, has he ever really stepped away from his influence? I mean, he's definitely not sitting on the back of porch, enjoying wine, or he's always clapping back, instigating and carrying on with the Trump administration. Where have you seen that? I remember, in 2016, Hillary saying, "Oh, well, if Trump didn't win, would he accept the results of the election?" Well, did somebody ask them that? When were they going to accept the results of the election that she didn't win? They never accepted it, and they've never walked away. They've kept their hands on the plow this whole time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here. Sorry for the delays. I'm working under a different. Okay, here we go. Thanks so much for everybody for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
I was 16, he was 19. He got caught up. He went to the county jail.
What does caught up mean?
He was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder in that jail. And during his first couple days, he was beat up by multiple
That means
sheriffs.
committing a crime,
They
right?
beat him so badly, he blacked out. He awoke in a pool of his own blood. He awoke being handcuffed to his bedpost. And he was denied medical services. I think growing up with this visceral experience of policing really shaped my organizing work. I remember the emotions I felt when I would witness the police raid our homes or raid our community homes or line the children up, the boy children in particular, and stop and frisk them. There was a sort of rage and sadness and helplessness that I really felt. What I experienced in Van Nuys during the war on gangs and the war on drugs was a significant amount of police repression, a significant amount of over-policing and over-incarcerating my neighbors, my siblings, my father. There was no organizers knocking on our doors telling us to join a movement. There were no hashtags or social media. There was a lot of despair. And so I really grew up in this sort of, beautiful backdrop, which is California, but some pretty serious ugliness. When I was 28 years old and created the local organization Dignity and Power Now, we took on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department 10 years after my brother was brutalized by them. Our main demand was to fight for civilian oversight of that department, and we won it. Even though I'd been organizing already for about 10 years, I was like, this shit works. Organizing actually works. We can save our communities. We can take the boot off their neck just a little bit more. This was our moment for justice. This was my family's moment for sure for justice. And it was incredible. The experience that solidified the work I must do was my brother almost dying at the hands of the Sheriff's Department. It is very challenging to out-organize white racism. Its speed and evolution in this time period has been pretty alarming. Black Lives Matter has presented the truth about the American people. Black Lives Matter has allowed for folks to either show up on the right side of history or do what we just did, which was elect a Trump. Black Lives Matter has both been an opportunity for this country to reevaluate its values and to situate itself in this larger conversation that's really about changing the course of history.
Don't shoot! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
And for me, it has reminded me why these struggles are so critical to changing humanity and evolving humanity. I want folks to sober up. This is not about instilling fear into our communities, although many of us are scared and fearful, but this is the time to be sober about the reality and the coming reality. I'm not sure we are going to be able to do the same things we did under the Obama administration, calling on him to change things and him actually inviting us to the Oval Office. I don't believe that a Trump presidency is going to invite us in. And so we have to think about how we build locally. We have to. What I know how to do best is gather people and from there develop organic solutions to our issues. I think we need more than that, though. I'm interested in building a plan that actually builds political power.
Mic is muted. Okay, thanks so much for tuning into this segment. Hello, Angel. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
I kind of spoke to it before on your show a couple of times, but I just want to go more in depth. I've spoke about my current apartment living situation, about how things have been a problem, but I've never went into the fullest extent. But trust me, if you were in the same apartment as I was, and with you being a news conservative, you feel the same way. This place is like a prison because over the past year since I've been here, I just haven't really liked this place at all, and I just can't take living here any longer. Because most recently, they over the weekend to be exact, when I had called one of the downstairs support staff here in the apartment that I'm living at, and simply asked her to keep a conversation between the two of us, where I simply I had said to her, as long as you keep it between you and me, everything is good. She thought that was somehow had posed a threat, or at least she thought that I posed a threat and that kind of stuff. But is that a threat or what? But because in my honest opinion, it was just me simply trying to keep something between us without having it be spread it from one person to another. And they've have threatened me a couple of times, like back in the end of April of this year. They have said that they would have to, I would have to face consequences for like not washing my hands. And I understand washing my hands is important during this time of this whole virus stuff, but is it really necessary for them to say that they would deactivate my card and go as far as to evict me from my current apartment that I'm living at? Which is more of a threat, me asking to keep a conversation between the two of us, or them saying that they would deactivate my card and evict me for simply not washing my hands?
Wow, that sounds like a tough situation. I'm not. I mean, when you're dealing with, apartment complexes, they kind of, run the roost, so to speak, and they kind of they hold the power, and they know that they do. And I'm not sure. Maybe you should try talking to someone else of management. Maybe a regional.
Well, there's not that much management. Basically, they treat this place like a prison. That's all I can say. Because ever since I moved here, I just haven't really appreciated this place all that much. And the times that I've been here, there's been many problems, and I guess you could say the problems have been like created myself. But usually, when you speak to someone, things should be worked out between you and the other people. But they don't seem to care about what I have to say and that kind of stuff. And you want to know something? Just a couple of weeks ago, back on June the 11th of this month, they had put me in a 7-day self-quarantine because back on June 10th of this month, my brother had tested positive for COVID, but he was asymptomatic, basically. And the last time I had seen my brother on a one-on-one basis in person was back on June 3rd of this month. But during that 7-day self-quarantine, and when it had came to an end back on June 17th of this month, so just last week, basically, I had found out that there were a couple other residents that had family members that had tested positive for COVID, and those residents didn't have to go into a 7-day self-quarantine themselves. It just seems like everything that is happening is like in direct towards me. Like the whole 7-day self-quarantine, the threats of them doing consequences to me, all for like not washing my hands. And I understand it's important at this time, but a simple reminder or like saying, hey, don't forget to wash your hands, or that kind of stuff, or simply ask politely, would be more easier to do so, instead of saying, if you don't do this, you'll face consequences. And when I asked what kind of consequences, they said, well, we would have to deactivate your card to prevent you from having access into the apartment. And we also might have to go as far as to possibly evict you. And so they've been doing more harm to me, if you like think of the scenario or situation that I'm in. And there's also many residents that don't like it here neither.
Well, I think you might need to, maybe, I don't know if you have anybody that you can reach out to in terms of maybe, from a legal standpoint. I know that they are, yeah, because I don't know what violations, what specific violations that might be there. It sounds like there are, and because of this COVID thing, the precedents for this COVID thing, that's why there are so many lawsuits and so many of these mayors and many of these even institutions are going to end up sued. They're going to end up getting sued because of the standards and they're violating people's rights. And I don't, yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from about like the property manager having authority and that kind of stuff. But the property manager shouldn't go as far if you're not going against anything in terms of the agreement that you made when you signed the papers. Because right now, everything that's put it on is basically just an add-on, but it's not necessary within your binding contract that you have signed up for your housing situation or your apartment unit. If they were more compliant or simply had asked me in more of a polite way and not do that kind of stuff, then sure. But yes, they do have the authority, but the person shouldn't just use their authority to be vindictive, the Cruella de Vil of any place. Because let me face it, the people here are like the villains of Disney. Like the property manager is like the evil version of Betty White. That's more like a Cruella de Vil kind of person. And the people here just haven't really respected people or myself in like recent weeks. But did they have to go as far as to like say that I would face consequences by them having to deactivate my access card to the ability to come in and out of my apartment, or saying that I would maybe they would have to go as far as maybe evict me? No, they didn't have to do that. And I consider them saying that more of a threat than me simply asking to keep a conversation between the two of us. Because imagine if I had asked the two of us to keep a conversation just between me and you over the phone, and you wouldn't consider that a threat. But it's because we have more of a mindset of understanding and they don't.
Well, I hear you. I mean, I understand your concern, but yeah, I do think that, if they're not giving you, if you don't think that they're giving you what you need to know, and they're just doing things or deactivating your card and doing things like this, and you definitely should talk to someone, maybe talk to someone else. You're not happy with what's going on there. I hope you can find some solutions sooner than later, because you did talk about that you had already been quarantined and you were already following their guidelines. So if you think that they're going too far.
And if you heard the news about like in recent days that just last week the Maricopa County of Arizona had put it a requirement for people to wear a mask within the public area. But apparently here in my apartment, they're asking residents to put a mask when they're simply as walking through the hallway within the apartment. So like, let's say if I were to go out out my door in that direction and like step out my apartment to simply walk the halls, they're asking residents to wear a mask when it's not even public, because public basically means like the outside of your home. And how is a hallway, how is a community room, how is a first floor basement part of the public when it's inside your building? Because it's saying like a basement is public, but a basement is basically within your home.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see that, but say there again, I don't, like I said, I don't know like the property laws or the commercial property laws. I don't know what that's like for a tenant. It might be something in your, I don't know, in the legalese of your lease or your agreement, but I don't know how they're defining what's public and, that kind of a bit. I mean, I wish I had something to share with you on that, but I think you should probably talk to someone. If you feel like your rights are being violated, if you're concerned that they're going to be violated, you might want to speak to someone with a, and I do think, shout out to Old Head Deuce. He says that they cannot intimidate you. No, they don't need to be intimidating you, and they need to, they need to give you the information that you need. And I would suggest that you speak to somebody. Is there anybody that you can talk to?
No, not really, because anyone within the current department are basically not listening to anyone. They're just like doing things what they think is proper, kind of like the Democrats thinking it's proper to just slap a bill without the work with the president and that kind of stuff. Like, think of all the bills that the House Democrats have passed in recent months, ever since they took control of the House back in November of 2018. That's kind of like what it is here, where they're just not willing to listen to anyone. They're just willing to do anything with that really isn't that proper or any form of understanding. And hell, they didn't even mention to us about anything like that in the beginning, not even through an email. So everything that is going on here is like a slap in the face, or like putting us on the spot, basically. And they had put me on the spot back on June 10th of this month, when the property manager had said to me that I would have to go into a 7-day self-quarantine. But it's because it was something that I didn't think was necessary, but apparently through their eyes it is. And so when she had asked me if I would have to be in that, I was basically being put on the spot. And it wasn't anything that I really was wanting to do, but I just needed time to think it over. And I asked for the rest of June 10th to have time to think it over and proceed things through my head. And I gave her a response the following day on June 11th. And I was more than willing to go through the 7-day self-quarantine. So pretty much everything that they put in place here at this apartment are just throwing it in the face of the residents without any form of communication or understanding. And even if I were to speak to someone else here in my apartment, they wouldn't care. It's all about the power of them, kind of like how the Democrats are all about the power and not the well-being of the American people.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I've had some experiences with apartment complexes before, and even, I had like not so good of a legal counsel that I hired, but you definitely it sounds like you might need someone that's from a neutral standpoint, that's not biased to, the property management. It sounds like you need to maybe need to ask to speak to someone, and maybe even, as Old Head Dude said, I actually asked many times to record a conversation that I was having when the conflict was happening. And that's, I'm not saying that they're going to grant you that, but you can at least let them know, look, what you're saying is going on record. So I'm letting you know. I don't even know what the laws are. You're in Arizona. You might check and see if you are allowed legally to record that conversation. You may not have to make them. Some states, you're not required to make them aware that you are recording a conversation. Sometimes you can. And, I know it's, they're tyrannizing a lot of people with this whole COVID-19. You can see that, of course, on the highest levels, state government, and then, of course, the businesses. And, with that being a property, I don't know if they're an independent property or who they are owned, or if they are, if they're independent, they might be setting their own rules, and that might be within their right to do. But I think you need to talk to someone that can interpret that for you and get you some answers, and kind of get you some relief in there. Because it seems like you were happier there. You seem like you were happier because you had moved there, but now because of COVID-19, you've got some extra things that you didn't anticipate happening to you. I'm sorry that's happening to you.
Well, actually, believe it or not, when I came here moving day of last year, I was, but it's just I was a bit skeptical of how this place was like, because I just when I had looked on the website and when I had looked on their little flyers, I thought it was going to be a totally different living situation that would be more freely, more openly. But with the addition of the services that they provide, because the apartment that I'm living at is a supported living assistance apartment for the autistic and disabled. And so when I had moved here, I thought it was going to be a place that would be freely and openly. But sadly, it's like a prison because everywhere you go, of every corner of the apartment, there's a camera. Like there's a camera at the end of the hallway near the trash chute. There's a camera over near where this child Lego area is at. And there's several cameras around each and every floor of this apartment. And the way that they have it set up with so many security cameras is like they're watching you 24/7. And also, there's so much about this place that I have really disapproved of that from the very beginning. Because in the beginning, they asked a picture for me in case if I ever were to like run away or get lost or that kind of stuff. But I've never had any form of loss or I've never ran away since moving here. But I just have never have approved their way of how they operate here, because they treat this place like a prison and not really a independent living situation to help the autistic/disabled out with more in their life to try to be more freely. Because like I am still trying to learn how to cook for myself. I'm still trying to learn how to budget my money. But have they provided that kind of service that helped me out? Nah, because their service is very limited, and I'm paying such a high amount of rent every month, which is $3,800 a month for an apartment that's only 704 square feet and with little to no service at all. And there's so much I hate about this place that you kind of are right. I was happy, but I was happy the day one, but things slowly became from happy to sad to mad to frustrated in the time since. Because I was in the first month of me living here, I went from happy of day one to sad in the first 30 days because of how they operate. And then from month one to month 6, I went from sad to mad because they weren't listening to me at all. And then I went from mad to frustrated from month 6 to month 12 now. And it's because they still don't listen. And due to COVID, they're being more restrictive than what the CDC or the county officials are saying. The county officials are requiring all people to wear masks while out in public. But here they have it to where you have to wear one in the hallway, and the whole hand washing, they only recommend it every so often. But here they have it to where if you are out of your apartment just for 30 seconds to get some fresh air, you have to wash your hands there. So every time you leave the apartment and come back in, you have to wash your hands before going back up to your apartment, which is more than what the CDC would recommend. So like, let's say if I were to be outside 3 or 4 times a day, every single time during that the time that I'm outside and coming back to my apartment, they have it to where you have to wash your hands. So this place is so corrupt.
Well, I do think you should use all of the resources that you have. If you have a social worker, or if you have somebody else, another counselor, I think you should let them know what's going on, and that and as long as you've been complying, I think if you're complying with what they've asked you to do, and then you think, okay, well, this is beyond reasonable. It's good that you know what the CDC, that you're informed on that. Yeah, I think it's great that you're informed and that you are thinking about these things. And I think you need to talk to somebody that can actually investigate what's going on. At least take a look.
The one thing I've learned since this administration is that there are people who go above and beyond than what any council or any health foundation like the CDC or the FDA does beyond, because like the Democrats are going far and beyond than what the CDC is saying, and the property manager here in my apartment are going far and beyond than what the CDC or what the city councils are saying. So and there is one other person who had noticed that, and me and her have been talking on a regular basis, and she is one awesome person, and I really do appreciate her communication. And you want to know something? On day 2 of my self quarantine at nearly 12 a.m. in the morning that day, she had called me late into the evening and had asked if I was doing fine, because she thought it was stupid and idiotic for me to have to go into a 7-day self quarantine. But she had voiced her concerns, her frustration, and how she thought it was idiotic. And she offered her services to me. She had offered to get me any groceries. She had offered to help get me any food that I needed during the 7 days. And I thanked her for her willing to do that for me. But I only used her service to a small percent. The only time I ever asked her to help me was when I wanted a box of cereal and a gallon of milk so I can have breakfast for the morning without having to order through Grubhub or DoorDash every morning from places like Burger King, McDonald's, or Wendy's for breakfast. So I only used her service for that. Because whenever someone offers their service, I don't take it to the fullest extent.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand that, and I like I said, I do empathize with you, because I know that living under those guidelines, and when it comes to residential property, or it can be more than unfair, and they can be very violating at times, and especially with this COVID-19, I think that's just compounding their power. They're abusing whatever they have, and if they're deactivating your card and doing those things, I think those are huge violations, Angel. I think you need some help with this. I mean, I'm just saying, I think you could maybe you could consider some help with this one, because I think they're going to keep doing things as long as no one's really no one's investigating. If no one investigates it, then they're going to keep doing these things.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: if a resident of an apartment had already submitted their 30 or 60-day notice, depending on what the policy is in your apartment, because some places I've seen require 30-day notice, while others have a 60-day notice for residents who plan on moving. If a person already submitted their notice and already are paid up until the end of the month, does that person have the authority to evict themselves without having them to try to do anything towards you? Because the reason why I'm asking that is because I basically have scheduled my move-in date to my new apartment for next week, the 30th. And my lease doesn't expire until the end of July of next month. But I had already submitted my 60-day notice, and I've already am paid through the end of June of this month. So if I were to evict myself and such, would they be able to do anything against me?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I like I said, that's why. I mean, I ended up, when I had a situation dealing with a property, I ended up reaching out to their headquarters. I ended up reaching out to, because I wasn't satisfied with the manager, and at that time I was dealing with more of a disruption, and I was dealing with my neighbor smoking weed at the time, and it was against the law. It was against the state law. And the company, the management, they weren't even sure that the person that was doing it was actually living there. So, you know, they didn't do a lot to help me. And I'm just saying, and even after I hired somebody, I didn't get a lot of help. So I ended up moving out. It was a brand new apartment complex. And, the thing is people don't understand is, even in an apartment, you would think that, that your rights end where somebody else's begins, but they didn't really uphold the law not state law. They didn't even adhere to their own community standards. So that's why I think it might be more helpful if you, it might be more helpful if you get somebody from a legal standpoint to see where you are and what they're doing. And if you can get
kind of like an attorney, basically.
Well, I mean, I'm saying maybe just get a consultation, or maybe talk to your. Do you have? I don't want you to disclose any information legally here or anything, or complicate you in any way. If you've got a social worker, I think you need to maybe keep a journal of all the conversations that you've had with the apartment, and put down what you've asked them and what what the response is, and take that to your social worker and say, hey, I've been trying to work this out, but this is what they're doing. And when I ask them why they're doing it, this is what they're saying. And then they can help you determine whether you need, a legal recourse, or what they want to do to help you mitigate the situation.
Well, the thing is, the only service that I have is a payee that helps manage my money. I don't have any social worker of any of that kind. I mean, I did when I was in Minnesota for the past 15 years, but I just didn't think about getting one when I had moved here last year, because I just wanted to not have the hassle of having services try to do things in what they think is best for me. I just wanted to try to go out there and do things that I think would be best for myself, to where I can make myself happy. But if there is one person I could bring this to, it would either be my payee or the attorney who is still with me, to his attention, or I could go to a legal service representative for like a consultation, like you said, or like, or because I know there are a few legal services here in Arizona, but I just don't have a social worker.
Okay. Well, and if you don't, that I assume that's okay. But you seem to have some other resources. So I would just maybe reach out. I don't know what time is. It's the same time zone, I think. Maybe you could call them this afternoon and just write down some of the things that you told me, and what you've asked them, and what they're asking you to, the guidelines that they're asking you to abide by, and you can tell them about the surveillance, tell them about the hand washing guidelines, and tell them about your key deactivation. I would just put it all down and say, can they do this legally? Are they violating my rules, violating my rights as a tenant? And what can I do to make my 60-day notice time to finish out my time here? Or, I mean, are you almost done with how far along are you with your quarantine? Are you still, you have a lot of time?
No. The 7-day quarantine ended back on June 17th of last week.
Okay, so is your card still deactivated?
No, they had said that they would if I did not comply with their hand washing, because back in the end of April of this year, when I had sat down outside on the area, patio area near the pool, I had spoke to the property manager, one of the support staff leaders, and one of the co-founders of this place, where I spoke to 3 of them. And one of the head people, or one of the co-founders of this place, her name is there if I disclose the name or not? Would you not?
No, I wouldn't disclose.
All right. That's why I wanted to ask before I said anyone's name. But one of the co-founders here had spoke to me, and she had informed me that if I did not start complying with the whole hand washing thing, of like every time I come into the apartment and wash my hands before I go back up to my unit, that they would have to face consequences. And I simply asked her, well, what kind of consequences? Well, for one, we would have to deactivate your card. Which is let me show it. Which is this, by the way.
Yeah, I understand. Well, and like I said, I think it's a sensitive situation, and I think in order for you to have the best results, I think you should probably go ahead and reach out to someone that you already know, that maybe helped you in the past, and I mean, I know living in apartment living, it has its pluses and minuses, but I would imagine during this COVID-19 that they've all had different standards, and you just want to be comfortable and you want to be treated well, treated with just and fairly. So I really appreciate what's
Yeah, I
that?
just want to be treated fairly, and that's the thing. I'm not trying to say that I'm thinking that I'm being more powerful. I just want it to where everything is treated fairly, and I just want it to where everything works out for everyone. But it's like they don't care. They are treating me like a dog. Like I was the only person that had to go into a 7-day self-quarantine from June 11th to June 17th. And there were a couple of other residents who had family members that had tested positive for COVID, and they didn't have to go into a 7-day self-quarantine themselves, which is kind of messed up in my honest opinion. Why would I be the only one that has to do it while the others who had family members that tested positive for COVID doesn't have to? And that's where like the corruption and that kind of stuff falls into play, because this place is so corrupt. This place goes far and beyond than what the CDC or the councils say or require. And this place is more like a solitary confinement / prison. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. There are many other people, and there has been some people that used to work here that felt the same exact way. Like just recently, the person that had called me on day 2 of my self quarantine, she had recently been fired.
Oh no.
She used to work here, but she was recently fired, and it's because of her like concerns of how this place operates. And also, if you have been to my channel lately, you may have seen a video that I posted of tarot card reading, and that's the person who was fired in that video.
Oh, wow. Well, Angel, I really appreciate you for coming on. And I hope that you can find some resolve and some resources that help you with it, because I know it's a touchy situation, but you definitely need someone with the legalese or the knowledge to help you make it through, or either change to another, if it doesn't work out, then maybe you can get another place.
Well, I already have another place that I'm going to be moving into come the 30th of next week, because that's what I was asking you about, is if they could do anything in terms of me leaving early when I've already put in my notice in and had paid my rent for the month.
Well, yeah. Well, see, I don't know. I wish I could be more helpful on that, but I'm not sure if I'm being helpful right now. But I just think that I'm not sure that that would be the legal part of it that I don't have the expertise on. And that's why I was thinking, if you have a human resource that you already know of, and say, hey, I'm leaving. I don't want anything to happen because I am leaving earlier, and I'm just trying to get through my time here. I'm trying not to have any friction before I leave, is from what I understand. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You want to be treated well and treated fairly until you're gone. That's all anybody should. They could at least do that.
And that's exactly it.
So, but I appreciate it so much, and yeah, I hope it all works out for you.
No problem. You have a great rest of your day, and until next time, hope you have a great Monday.
All right, thanks. You too, Angel.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Angel. Angel Minute Variety Show. Very loyal supporter, and great content on his channel. So shout out to you, Angel Minute Variety Show. Shout out to everybody that's streaming. Shout out to Crazy Tina. How you doing, Crazy Tina? Thank you so much for coming in. The last video, I want to kind of go back. I want to make the last tag. I'm going to close out the stream in about 15 minutes. I want to thank everyone for joining me on this segment. But as you can see, that you've got, these are, I've talked about Marxists, and I think these are neo-Marxists that are they're attacking this whole, their whole platform on defund the police, and these, I think they have bigger plans, and I think it's to it's more about the destruction of more values and laws and things. I think it's much broader than what the founder or the founder has said. You know, she said clearly she has political aspirations, and you know, they're seeking power. They're seeking power, but they're never. I don't think they're ever going to achieve because they are being used. I even think BLM is being used to bring about some type of revolution that's going to change the values of you know. When you lose your values, you're going to lose. You're going to lose everything because a socialist government or economy does not. You're not going to have freedom. You're going to be more restricted. It's going to be under government control, and there won't be any cap. There's very anti-capitalist. They want to, you know, they want to lend everything, break it down to a capitalistic evil, and more enslavement is what they say they fight against, but then it's actually that's the same faction that's controlling them. They're being used to bring about a larger, I think this is a global movement that's going to enslave everyone of all backgrounds. Your wealth redistributions, all of it. A lawless nation. You know, would you trust, I've said this before, would you trust your neighbor with your security, your family security, your security? Would you trust them? I mean, I've heard people submit things about private securities and all of these things. Well, you're never going to get rid of, you can't control people. You know, they seem to think that they can. You know, I think it's more of a cultural Marxist. It's a strong faction. Think reform. It's strong. It's everywhere. It's popping up on kids' video games. People are, you know, got these signs on their businesses. You're seeing them on people's cars. And even, what was it, Eric Swalwell? I saw him on the floor on Capitol Hill. He says his question was, if I can find that clip, that'll be the last one. He was basically challenging everyone to say, can anybody say, yeah, I'm going to see if I can find it for you. So yeah, I'm going to bring you this clip. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Just 1 second. And actually, I've got a Joe Biden clip to go with it. So you're going to really love this one as we bring out to the close of the installment here. And shout out to you, Rapper 10,000. You said we need to reopen the states. Yeah, I think we're done over. We're done over on that point. It would be helpful. So let's do this one. And shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you so much. Please make sure you're still subscribed. I'm going to have to make that a part of the regular housekeeping order, that, you know, just make sure you're still subscribed. I'm actually excited that some things are going to be coming to the channel. While I'm at it, I want to take an opportunity to shout out the loyal patrons. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you so much for all you do. If you are, sorry about that. If you're just now joining us, thank you so much. Shout out to the loyal patrons. If you're looking for live streams, great content, take a look at all of the loyal patrons as well as everybody in the stream. This is not an actual Grow Stream program or channel, but I welcome everyone to get to know each other because we have lots of great supporters And there's going to be more coming to the channel in the very near future, especially with this election season coming up. I think it's helpful that everybody can be a little bit more involved, a little bit more active. I think that's going to help a lot because we are up against a lot of strong forces. We are up against a lot. And you're going to have to start with your community. You got to take it's almost like you got to take your own communities back. So here we go. This is a clip that I'm going to be sharing with you with Mr. Swalwell and his take on BLM. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn, but not without Joe Biden.
Hello, everyone. I'm coming directly to you for ask a quick favor. Will you add your name today to join our team? I said from the outset of this election that we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. Who we are, what we believe, who we want to be, it's all at stake. And that's truer today than ever. But the only way to defeat Donald Trump and move forward is by doing it together. So please, join us. You're not just wanted, you're needed.
All right, now if that's good for you.
Sounds like my colleagues on the other side want to welcome and embrace and work with us on needed police reforms. Not to say that all cops are bad cops, but that we're seeing too many exceptions today. I say that as the son of a police chief, the brother to 2 police officers, and a former prosecutor myself. Things have to change. But no one's talking about, in this bill, defunding the police. We're talking about policing the police and fixing the police and reforming the police. But when I say we need to calibrate where we are all at, I've heard a lot of my colleagues on this side say Black Lives Matter. And I'll be honest that when that movement first emerged, I didn't necessarily understand what that meant. I heard people say all lives matter, and I thought, well, yeah, all lives matter, right? People would say, well, you have a white privilege, and I thought, well, I grew up living in 13 different houses, going to 11 different schools, first in my family to go to college, that there was no privilege there. And then it was explained to me by my African-American friends that even though you and so many others may have had hardships, your opportunity was not limited because of the color of your skin. That's what people say when they talk about a white privilege, which is real and should be acknowledged. The founder of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, says, Black Lives Matter doesn't mean your life isn't important. It means that Black lives, which are seen as without value within white supremacy, are important to your liberation. Given the disproportionate impact state violence has on Black lives, we understand that when Black people in this country get free, the benefits will be wide-reaching and transformative for society as a whole. When we are able to end the hypercriminalization and sexualization of Black people and end the poverty, control, and surveillance of Black people, every single person in this world has a better shot at getting and staying free. When Black people get free, everybody gets free. Black lives matter, period. And so I would yield to any of my colleagues on the Republican side who can unequivocally say, as we calibrate where we are right now, that Black lives matter.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Does the gentleman believe that all lives matter as well? I think Black lives matter. I think all lives matter.
Reclaiming my time. Can anyone on the Republican side say unequivocally Black lives matter?
Unequivocally, all lives matter. Why is that a problem to acknowledge?
Reclaiming my time. I think it's clear that my colleagues on the other side would like to put up a straw man to not have the uncomfortable conversation that we need to have about race. Typically in police shootings, most of the focus is on the conduct of the officer, and we never get to the harder part about the systemic issues we have in our country. Nobody is disputing that what the officer did here with Mr. Floyd should be defended. So we have to have the harder conversation about systemic issues in policing. Instead, we get this straw man of, well, you're trying to defund the police. Nowhere in this legislation is anyone seeking to defund the police. So until you're willing to Get rid of the straw man, get rid of the confusion, get rid of all of the different tactics you're using to avoid the hard conversation about race in America. We are not going to get where we need to be to have equality, not just in policing, but in healthcare, in jobs, in education.
Will the gentleman
Black
yield?
lives matter. I'm
I
sad
can say
to say no one
unequivocally,
on the other
Black
side
lives
will say
do
it.
matter, unequivocally. Black lives do
And
matter.
I'll yield to Mr.
Every life is precious, God-given, and Black lives matter, unequivocally. Every
Thank you,
life's
Mr. Tillman.
important.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not sure what you, Swalwell was borderline having a conniption and assigning straw man because you won't repeat after me. Don't think, just repeat after me. Don't think, just repeat after me. What is I don't know how anybody can take these people seriously. It's the same as the mask. Don't think about whether the mask is actually benefiting you or not. Just wear it. Just wear it. Don't create a straw man. Just wear it. It's the same. It's the same tactic. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate everyone for being here. And thank you so much for hitting that like button and share button where available. I really appreciate that towards the Channelytics. Now, I will tell you right now, I'm scheduled to do Mondays and Tuesdays, but I'm not saying that there won't be any other, there may be some other night streams. And if that is so, I will post that. But I think there may be a couple of night streams here and there. And I appreciate everyone so much for coming in. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Old Head says, I'm not going to knock him because the correct ears will listen, but it's watered down. Shout out to Rapper 10,000. Let's see. I'm just going to go back through. Shout out to Kimone Reed Unstoppable. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. I really appreciate you. And I need to make sure that I have everyone's notifications on because I want to support other channels as well as time goes on. I want to come on and support other channels. Is anybody else going live? So I'm going to close the stream out in about the next four minutes, roughly. A little bit under 4 minutes. I'm going to close out this stream. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Thank you so much. Also, there's potentially going to be some other things coming to I want to offer some things to the community, and I'm going to be putting those on the community tab. It may even include some merchandise, I'm thinking possibly, and also a poll. I'm going to be putting a poll out this week also. And also, if you would take a look at, keep an eye on the community tab as well as the Patreon page. And I have an announcement for that, for the Patreon page as well. So there's just lots of things that are going to be coming out. And as soon as I get them, I will be bringing those to you. So shout out to everyone in the stream. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels, Patrick Jane Forums, Theology Forums. Really appreciate you guys and all that you do. There's also going to be some training opportunities coming up, and you'll find out about that as soon as I finalize everything. Kimone Reed Unstoppable, thank you so much. Shout out to Delacta Camille. Thank you so much. Let's see, who else do we have here? Alien Believers, shout out to you. Shout out to Sandy K. I thank you so much. Shout out to Theology Forums, Patrick Jane Forums, Killer Whale Channels. Shout out to Derek C. Williams. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to the Angel Munez Variety Show. I think that just brings it. That's just about everyone. It's Kimone Reed Unstoppable. Thank you. Shout out to Sandy K. You guys are the absolute best. And keep an eye on the community tab, as always. If there's nothing else, I'm going to do a couple of more. Yes, and you do the same. I really appreciate you guys. We're down to about a little under 45 seconds. And we will be calling this a Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Have a great Monday.